Welcome back to the cockpit of the A-18 Hornet. We are continuing to run through the final playthrough of the campaign that I made for this, the flight school campaign that we've been working on for quite a while now. I think it's pretty much ready to go, but I just want to do one full playthrough to make sure that it advances through everything fine. And we are about to do lesson number 5 or 6. I can't remember which one this is, but it's the radio navigation, which we're going to do at night. We will be doing a full playthrough of the mission, except for doing time compression when I know there's nothing, no narrations or anything that are going to be happening. So let's go ahead, get in here, get this started, and get through this mission.
Welcome back. You can feel free to go through the startup sequence while I go through the spiel for this mission. You'll need the flashlight to see the switches, so activate it using the appropriate key bind, left Alt-L. Flying from waypoint to waypoint is generally the best way to get from one place to another, but it isn't the only way, and there are certain situations where understanding and being able to use radio navigation can make things easier, and in some situations be critical to mission success. For this flight, we're going to learn about the two forms of radio navigation equipped on the Hornet, TACAN and ADF. The Automatic Direction Finder, or ADF, is a radio detector that displays the direction from the aircraft to a radio source, and that's it. There is no additional information, so it has a very limited use case. Our first destination will be crossing a VOR station, which the Hornet will pick up in this mode. The other form is the TACAN, or Tactical Air Navigation, which also provides direction to the station, but also gives you the distance in nautical miles to that station. This is far more useful, as it allows us to get fairly precise position location based on our bearing from the station and the provided distance. This flight will be flown solely with the aid of radio navigation to get you used to using those instruments. Once the aircraft is started up, we'll get the radio aid set up.
Okay, well, this is one of those things that we'll zoom through, we'll time compress through so we can hurry up and get to everything. I can't remember if the lights turn on, if this auto start sequence turns the lights, Be
sure you've set your cockpit lighting appropriately for night.
And I don't remember what my keybind for the lights are, so we got to look for that. Let's see, flashlight, left Alt-L.
Conditions, especially the console and instrument panels, as they'll be impossible to see in the dark. The HUD is also extremely bright at full power at night, so adjust it with the brightness knob until it's comfortable to look at. Our first destination will be a VOR station, which we'll fly over to demonstrate approaching and crossing a radio source and what that looks like on the HSI. The first thing we need to do is get the frequency for the station entered into the radio. Find the COM1 channel selector knob on the left side of the UFC just under the numbered keys and rotate it using the mouse wheel until the display reads M for manual. Type in 113600 and press enter to input the frequency into the radio. You'll know you have the correct frequency because a Morse code signal will begin coming in over the radio. This is the signal assigned to the VOR station we'll be flying over, so as long as you hear it, you know you're good. Find the ADF switch just to the left of the number keys on the UFC and switch it to COM1 with a right mouse click. This will send the information to the HSI so the station appears on the display once we're within range. It likely already appears on the HSI as an empty circle outside the heading wheel at about 270 degrees. Keep that in mind because we'll be looking for that again once we're in the air.
Actually don't see it. It usually shows up right now.
Okay, now that we have our first destination sorted, let's get the TACAN set up. After we fly over the VOR station using the ADF, we're going to head over to Batumi to practice the instrument approach to an airfield. I'll give you detailed instructions after we pass over the VOR station, but go ahead and enter the TACAN code for Batumi, 16X, and don't forget to turn the TACAN on. After that, press the TCN push button on the HSI to select it as the active signal. You won't be able to use it as intended later on if you forget that part. We're all set for the flight. Go ahead and taxi to the runway while I go over how to get to the VOR station. Don't forget to turn on your landing/taxi lights using the switch just down and to the left of the flap switch. To get within range of our first destination, you'll turn to a heading of 270 after takeoff and continue until the HSI picks up the station.
Just double check and make. Oh,
Know this has happened when an empty circle appears outside.
Should
the
be checking
wheel.
these anyway. I should be checking to make sure that the cards are all in there.
Turn
Keep
toward
forgetting
the
to do
signal
that.
until the circle is at the top of the HSI and follow it until told otherwise. One thing to remember, though, is that radio signals work on line of sight, so if something big is in the way, like a mountain, you may lose the signal until the obstruction is out of the way. Don't panic. Just keep on flying until the signal comes back. This will be a relatively long flight, so feel free to make extensive use of the autopilot to reduce your workload and focus on the instruments. The heading, HSEL, and altitude, vault, functions are the options you should be using, as there are no waypoints for this flight. You can adjust the selected heading with the HDG switch just below the UFC.
Listen, I
You can
hissing the
hold
whole
the switch
time.
left or right until it's on the proper heading, or you can also hold it down for a couple of seconds and the UFC menu will show an HSEL option, at which point you can just type the heading you want with the number pads and press enter. Go ahead and get yourself in the air, turn to a heading of 270 and climb to an altitude of 10,000 feet. You're free to choose your own airspeed, but keep an eye on your fuel consumption. If you're using afterburner the whole flight, you might not have enough fuel to get back.
You'll definitely not have enough fuel to get back.
I'll provide further instructions as you approach the VOR station. Be patient and watch the HSI and everything will be fine.
Alright, so we won't have any narration for a little while. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A little high. That set up, get the V-alt set up, and now you just fly until you get to the VOR station. It'll show up here with as a circle at some point once we get close enough to it, and the mountains and stuff are out of the way. There it is. So, let's see here. Boom, 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 boom. All right. Should be heading towards it pretty good. And we just wait till we get close enough. We're also waiting for Batumi to show up on our for Batumi to show up on our TACAN, which will be pretty nice too. Because basically the way this works is you fly to the VOR station, and then you fly past the VOR station, and that kind of gets you out over the water so you can turn around to approach Batumi using the TACAN radio, which this is the lesson we're learning about that on. So there's no waypoint navigation in this mission at all. You're doing it all via radios. So that's kind of important. Let's,
Looks like you made it to Kutaisi, so good job. As you fly over the station, you'll see the circle suddenly swing around behind you, and you'll know that you've crossed overhead. Once that happens, you can turn off the ADF with the switch next to the UFC number keys, then go ahead and enter the frequency for the tower at Batumi so we don't have to listen to the Morse code identifier signal anymore.
310.
Once that's done, turn to a heading of 270. Remember my comment earlier today about straight-in landings? Well, there are a few exceptions. While nearly all our landings in this course will be a practice of the Case 1 recovery procedure on an aircraft carrier, night landings will be for practicing the Case 3 recovery, which involves a straight-in landing to the carrier. Case 3 is used at night.
I'm gonna take a second to check out my audio here. Here, like in helmet, I think I'm gonna turn the cockpit down to like 70 because I feel like it's super loud. See if that helps.
During inclement weather, because the visual cues necessary for the Case 1 procedures are difficult or impossible to see. Since you need to know how to perform a Case 3 recovery, we're going to do an approximation of that every time we land at night.
We only do it a couple times.
Press IP to continue.
I think
Once
we do
you have
one
the
more night
TACAN
landing at
selected
the
in the
carrier.
HSI, you can place a visual indicator over the TACAN station to help you line up with it using the CRS switch to the right side of the UFC just under the menu buttons. It works just like the HDG switch. Hold it down for a couple of seconds, then enter the runway heading with the number pads and press enter. In this case, we want to enter the runway heading for Batumi, which should be 126, but unfortunately it's not quite that
There's
simple.
a typo there.
Press IP to continue. For various reasons, Many times the course headings provided on the map don't always match with the course headings you need to see in the aircraft to get where you're going. This is because of something called standard deviation. It has to do with the movement of the magnetic pole, but to keep it simple, just understand that different parts of the world require a different adjustment to map headings so that your instruments work correctly. This is the standard deviation. For the Caucasus, the standard deviation is -6 degrees, so you're going to need to do that math in your head anytime you're given a heading from a map to get the proper information entered into your aircraft. All that said, the runway heading listed on the map for Batumi is 126 degrees, so we're going to need to subtract 6 degrees from that for a final heading of 120. Go ahead and hold the CRS switch down until the UFC menu option appears, then type in 120 and press enter. You should see an arrow over the TACAN station on your
And it also
HSI
shows up
pointing
on our
in the
HUD,
direction
which is
of
very helpful.
120. Press IP to continue. If you look at the HSI, you can see that the TACAN station at the airfield is off to our left. We need to circle around a bit to get lined up. Continue on this heading until the airfield is about 50 miles away, then press the IP button for further instructions.
Alright, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We got to get to where the distance is starting to increase, then we get out to 50 miles, 50 nautical miles, and then he's going to have us turn in towards the line. So we can start lining up to land.
Disable the autopilot and turn left until the course line we created is perpendicular from right to left on the HSI. As you make your way toward the course line, descend and maintain 3,000 feet and reduce your airspeed to about 350
Radar
knots.
altimeter done.
Switch the altimeter to radar so we make sure we don't hit anything. This will be important later when you land at Vatsiani. If you look up at the HUD, you'll see the course line is also depicted there along with 2 dots. These dots provide you left and right distance from the course line. As you get close to the course line, the arrow on the HUD will start moving toward your velocity vector. Once it starts moving, make an aggressive 45-degree turn to the left. Keep turning until your heading is at about a 45-degree angle from the course line.
Looking for the
Once the course line passes the inner dot, make gradual adjustments to the left to place yourself exactly on the course line. You'll know you've got it right when the arrow is pointing straight up and is perfectly centered on the velocity vector.
I don't remember which one of these is the head brightness. That was that. That's better. That's much better. And now that it's completely dark, we have no orientation on anything, so I was too busy screwing around with that. Let me just look at the message history. Once it starts moving, get online. I think everything else for the rest of this is done with triggers. So once we enter the zone triggers, so once we enter the zone for whatever it is we're doing, it'll start doing stuff. Line's starting to go. Try to maintain less than 5 degrees of angle. 5 degrees of whatever the pointing down is. I forget what it's called. Because I have submarine terms in my head too, so that doesn't apply to aircraft. Okay. It's 3,000 feet. Too busy screen. I don't know. Did he tell us to talk to the tower yet? I don't think so. I think that's going to be a trigger that we get here in just a minute. We'll be-alt that so that we don't end up inadvertently descending. Now we're just trying to get online. This is the hard part, trying to do this while you're speeding, while you're sped up. Alright, we're just going to do like that.
And we need to let the tower know that we're inbound for approach, so they'll turn the runway lighting on. It'll be pretty hard to see the runway without them. You should already have the tower frequency in the radio, so use your COM1 call radio menu key bind to bring up the communications menu. Select ATC, Batumi, inbound to let them know you're coming. They should light up the runway for you.
Okay, that does it. I mean, it's supposed to be 120, right? That's the course we're supposed to be on. So, let's go ahead and do heading select. 120, enter, and then we'll just go ahead and put the heading select.
Okay,
why not?
We're about 10 miles from the runway. Go ahead and begin a 600 to 900 foot per minute descent toward the runway.
Or we'll just turn
As you
everything
do so, slow to less than 250 knots and then configure the aircraft for landing, being
Maybe
sure
that
to
light
control
off in
your
the
descent
distance
rate.
is our air.
Unfortunately,
aircraft,
the Hornet doesn't have an ILS system that works with airfields, so we have to do
Runway.
a bit of math as we approach the runway.
It's
It's pretty easy, really. Just multiply your distance in miles by 3 and add 2 zeros. So at 5 miles you should be at about 1,500 feet, and at 2 miles you should be at about 600. Do your best to stay on the TACAN localizer and control your descent rate with the throttle. Once the runway is in sight, it's all visual from there. As you approach the airfield, you'll be handed off to the tower, so simply select the Request Landing option to finish up with the radio. Once you can see the runway, you can switch to a completely visual approach and ignore the TACAN information. Once you touch down, add full power and get back into the air, then turn to a heading of 076 for further instructions.
Speed brake, because it's taking us forever, because we need to get our flaps and stuff, our landing gear and flaps down. It's taking forever to get to that. Come on. Dude. I'm telling you, there is some kind of automatic pilot stuff that's happening right now. It just will not let go of my aircraft. I don't understand that. I don't know what that is. Yeah, see? Right there. Pretty sure the gear's down. Press the button again just to be safe. Alright, so this is a touch and go, so you don't even really need to worry about your rudder pedals or anything. Just do the approach as best you can. Like I have my toes on there for the just in case factor, but you're not gonna land here, you're just running through. Adjust my trim.
And that's how it's done. Go ahead and add full throttle, get back in the air, and turn to 076.
Okay, 076. Autopilot heading select. Turn that off. And away we go. I think the next thing is on a zone, so there's no IP button or anything.
We're ready to head back to Vatsiani now, and this time it's all up to you to get yourself on the ground. Go ahead and enter the TACAN frequency for the airfield, and once you're close enough you can set the CRS switch to the correct heading. The heading listed on the map is 135, but remember you need to correct for that with the standard deviation value for the Caucasus. As you approach the airfield, give yourself enough room to get lined up with the course line at 3,000 feet so you can begin your descent at about 10 miles. Don't forget to set your altimeter to radar mode. Forgetting to do so will likely result in a crash. Here are a few hints to increase your chances. Ensure your TACAN frequency is set and that you have it selected on the HSI. Remember the standard deviation rule when setting your runway course. Ensure that your radar altimeter is set so you don't hit the ground. Be aware that there are mountains in the area around Vatsiani, and it's too dark to see them, so keep a close eye on that radar altimeter. As you approach the airfield, be sure to contact them on the tower frequency so they turn on the runway lights. Give yourself enough room to get on the course line and be settled at about 3,000 feet before you hit 10 miles. Until you're more experienced, 30 miles is a good distance to use while approaching the course line. Remember the multiply by 3 rule as you approach the runway. Switch to visual once you can clearly see the runway. Night landings are straight in, so just take her on home and park it in Space One. Good luck, and see you on the ground.
Okay. So now you just head on your way back to Vatsiani, wait for the TACAN to wait for the mountains to get out of the way so you can pick up the TACAN, verify that your course is set to the 129 there, and then you do the same thing you just did, except this time you're actually coming to a full stop. Come on. As long as you're at least 10,000 feet, you shouldn't hit any mountains, so it should be fine. Oh, there we go. Alright, so now that we can see it, let's just double check. Our course is set to... I forget where you see the course on here. Yeah, bottom right of the screen, course select 129, that is what we want. So now we're just trying to get over there. Leave it in the comments if you know the song. That is actually not what we want there, so I'm going to turn off the heading select so that we can start turning this way. So we definitely don't want to be like that. Then we'll get like this. Let's turn on our radar altimeter. We can start descending now. I always overshoot this because I'm impatient. I want to hurry up and finish the mission by this point, but whatever. Way overshot it. That's alright. Oh, you know what? We do need to get the comms in for Vatsiani, though. I haven't done that part yet. Let's see here. Comms for... It's 140.
Altitude. Altitude.
That's what's starting to crash.
Colt 1, inbound.
Alright, so same thing we did before. Need to stop descending because I'm supposed to be. I mean, the multiply by 3 rule is basically whatever your distance is, multiply that by 3, that should be your altitude. So at 10 miles, multiply that by 3, we should still be at 3,000 feet. I'm really high, but we're just going to stay here because... because we need to get our flaps and gear down. How about that? Alright, I can see the runway lights over in this direction. So, head off to the right. The thing about using the course line as your indicator to get to the airfield is that the actual radio source for that is always off to the side of the runway, so lining up with that works up until a point, but then once you get really close, you have to be able to visually line up because we don't have an actual ILS system on this aircraft. So it's not like an airliner or whatever. You actually have to do this. You actually have to visually land these aircraft. Unless you're landing at the carrier, then you have the automated carrier landing system or whatever. Okay, we're just gonna... Alright, we're cleared to land. Speeding this process up just a little bit, because we have better things to do than to take forever to get this done. Alright, I'm gonna real time it now. A little high. Drop our altitude just a hair, so we don't land too hard. I tend to have a bad. I tend to screw up the angle on this a lot, and then I end up damaging my landing gear. So we're gonna mitigate that somewhat by coming in a little. I did a little too much, but that's okay. I think we can recover this.
Good trap. Exit the runway and taxi to parking spot 1.
Okay. Having a hard time seeing. Alright, yeah, I think the blue lights are where the taxi goes. So let's get the speed brake turned off. And away we go. And then we just got to get over there, turn the aircraft off, and we should be all set.
Head back to parking spot 1 and shut down the aircraft.
Okay, almost done. Almost done. Okay, and then as I did in the last one, I have an auto shut-off sequence that I downloaded, but we're not going to use that for this because the actual sequence for this requires you to do certain things, and the auto shut-off sequence doesn't do some of them, so it ends up getting stuck in the process, or it kind of does it in a different order from what I have it set up to track for your shutting down. Because the whole point is that for this entire first set, it provides you with those little visual indicators to help you remember what the shutdown sequence is, and you know, you kind of have to do all of those in the order in which I prescribed them for you to be able to do that. So for this part, we're just going to have to manually shut it down. I think that's probably good enough. Nice. All right. Rudder trim set. Parking gear. O-bogs off. Radio or radar or INS off. Radio off. Volume or turn off the radios. Turn off the TACAN. Open up the canopy, turn off the left engine, turn these off. And then once you get to the battery, you turn off the right engine and turn off the battery.
Excellent work. Get some rest because training continues tomorrow morning.
And then we should be able to quit in the mission. Awesome. Navigation flight review. So we have 2 more missions. We may do both of these in the same video tomorrow because I don't know, because it's the same mission. It's just one teaches you how, one walks you through it, does a walkthrough of it, and the other one you just have to do it on your own. They're slightly different to make sure you can't just type in the same stuff over again. You actually have to learn. But yeah, that's the way that's going to end up going. But anyways, thanks for watching. We're going to continue to go through these as we go, so be sure to come back for future videos. Hit the like button to spread the video out to more people. Subscribe to help us reach 10,000 subscribers. Join as a member for early access to videos, among other perks, or you can just leave YouTube's version of a tip with the thanks button. I also have a link down in the description to my PayPal thingy or whatever, if you prefer to do it that way. So again, thank you very much for watching. Come back tomorrow for another episode, and I'll see you then.